Ladies, my fellow mommies, we are always so busy, on the go, kids screaming in the back seat, sleeping babies. I have the ultimate hack for you.
Welcome to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast with Krista and Tracy, your go-to girls for health, fitness, and keeping it real in mom life.
If you can't seem to get in a good groove with your nutrition and exercise program, this is for you.
We've coached thousands of women using macros for over 8 years, and I'm well known around here for my 5-day meal prep videos.
What does a macro balanced meal look like?
Hit subscribe to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast and join us for a fun, meaningful journey toward a healthier, happier you.
You got this, Mom.
We are on episode 6 of the podcast, and today we're going to talk about everything exercise. And we just want this episode to be an encouragement to you that when you're done listening, you're going to want to exercise. We're going to talk about navigating life transitions with exercise, finding motivation in the midst of chaos, overcoming challenges, and staying consistent. And again, just an encouragement to all of our listeners. Krista, let's just start with childhood. First of all, you and I met through exercise. So let's just talk about that. What does your early childhood memories with exercise consist of?
So we met right before freshman year because we were going to play volleyball together. But before that, I was never in any organized sports. My mom was always an exerciser. She loved to go walk and run. So I remember tagging along with her all throughout middle school and high school. But until high school, it was nothing organized for me. What about you?
I did organized sports when I was a kid, but I was just thinking that most children's first experience with exercise is typically through sports of some sort. You don't feel like you're exercising, you're just having fun.
Right.
But I think you and I both had moms that were really into exercise. I remember going to the park with your mom and she would walk her laps or run, and we would do that at the park right by the high school.
Right.
I remember we did volleyball. And Chris, I don't know if this was a traumatic moment for you, but for me, I remember the coach saying to try out for the team, you had to be able to run a mile without walking. That seemed so hard at the time. I thought, oh my, I don't know if I've ever done that before. Just
I was thinking we did forget about elementary school PE. I remember running laps in elementary school and loving it. I never hated it. When I taught PE, there were kids that just hated exercise, and I don't remember ever having those feelings. It's always something that I enjoyed.
I do remember once I got to middle school, it would frustrate me because there were a lot of girls that just didn't want to participate. And I was more competitive. Like I wanted to win the game.
You wanted to play the games. And
Yes.
middle school is
But
definitely where PE changed. The teachers don't necessarily organize anything, and it's up to you.
But I was also just thinking about the 1 mile that we had to run without walking and how funny that is because now all of my kids, I don't have a single kid that would freak them out. So Siege made the basketball team at his middle school and he's playing basketball for the very first time. And the coach said to try and catch them up on their conditioning. He wanted them to run, in addition to their 2-hour practices every day after school, he wants them to run at least 5 miles in a 7-day time period.
Okay.
Spread out however you want.
He's not nervous about this, is he? I mean,
He's not nervous about it, but we're all doing it together as a family.
okay.
So we set the timer 3, 2, 1, go, and we're all running. And it's just funny because I'm in last place every time. They all run faster than me. So it's transition. I was just thinking about, okay, so we're playing volleyball. You and I are playing volleyball in high school. We kind of bond over exercise. And I remember it being tough a lot of times going into the weight room for the first time and bench pressing and
I remember at that time thinking it was so ridiculous. Do you remember Coach Wetchin trying to teach us how to power clean? And I remember just like, rolling my eyes in my head, like, what in the world do we need to learn this for? I loved being in the weight room. I thought that was super cool, but to me, that was so foreign. And if we only knew then what we knew now, right? To work on our plyometrics, I remember thinking the same thing. Like, I'm never going to be able to jump high.
turns out Coach Wetchin knew what she was doing.
Yes.
So what, Krista, kept you motivated to keep exercising through it all? Maybe your love for exercise started at a young age, but what kept you going?
Became a habit, I guess. I was actually thinking about this today when I was out for a walk. I just love the feeling of being outside. You're not always outside exercising, but that's how it started for me. Deciding on my own to go to the park and jog, like because we didn't have volleyball in the off seasons. I just craved that, the feeling of it, I guess.
And that's a real feeling. You get serotonin boost after you exercise. It's connected to our physiological response to exercise. We mentally feel better as well as like it's doing our body all these physical good, but
Mhm.
we get that serotonin boost from exercising.
Yeah, I definitely think it started out that way and then it just kind of became a habit. My mom showed me that that's just what you do, you exercise.
So, how has your exercise routine changed as you transition from sports in high school? Because we wouldn't go to college for sports.
Right. I think we would both agree that that was probably the hardest transition period, I think, in my life, figuring out I'm on my own now. And I'm sure there was, I think that might have been the only period in my life where I may have gone months without going to a gym or doing physical fitness. Luckily, we both married people who are athletes and who like physical fitness, which for sure was a bonus. I think it would be really hard if your partner didn't. I sympathize with people whose partners aren't into being fit and athletic. We got married not long after high school. I do remember early on Chad and I doing P90X, and I hated that. I hated it. I hated getting up early. I had my first child when I was still in college. That was probably, I feel like, one of the busiest times. At the time, it felt like the busiest time of my life, right? When you have one kid and you're trying to figure out how to do everything and you have a full-time job. We would get up early, 4:30 a.m. to do those P90X videos, and it was not fun.
I'm just laughing because I can hear the guy's voice. Tony,
Jokes every day, the same exercises. It's terrible. You guys, I think we're doing it too, right?
we did, yes, but I was thinking I definitely gained the freshman 15.
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember Chris going off to Fresno State to wrestle Division I wrestling. He's in the best shape of his entire life. And I would drive up from Las Vegas to Fresno State to visit him. And I remember one time he was like, let's go on a jog together. And I was mortified, Krista, because I had gained weight and I couldn't even run. I think it was like a half a mile and I puked. I puked. It was such a short distance. I was so out of shape. But that was a aha moment for me. Like, okay, my boyfriend is this wrestler in college and I can't even run a half a mile without puking. I got to I got to get myself together. I've had those moments where something's got to change big time. Have you ever had any of those aha moments where you're like, okay, I got to get myself together?
Well, I think I definitely had that aha moment, P90X. I was like, this is not going to last. I hate this. And I always loved to go and jog outside. I remember jogging with Brett in the stroller and getting my first double stroller. I think you had one too, right? The double
Oh,
bob.
yeah.
Yeah, that was always my go-to was going for a run.
Yeah,
You
and
didn't
I
need
think
that.
as a young mom, that's an easy one because you just plop them in the stroller. They enjoy it too because 'cause they're going for a fun ride, they're
Right.
cruising, but I got into running these half marathons and triathlons, and that was kinda my first post-volleyball exercise experiences. I was gonna run these half marathons, and for the record, in case anybody's dying to know, I think I've run 2, and the first time I ran it, I said, I will never do this again. My body's just not meant to run long distance. I'm never doing it again. And of course, I did it again. And the second time I said, why didn't anybody tell me to stick to my guns the first time? This was more miserable. I'm for sure never doing this again.
That was
Have
the Las Vegas rock and roll one, right? Was that your
Yeah,
first one or the second one?
that was my second one. The first one I did was in Lake Mead, and it was super hilly. It was a
Yes, I remember
very
you telling
challenging course.
Mhm.
And I died out the last mile. I was so frustrated with myself because I didn't have the mental fortitude to go the last mile. This has happened twice to me before. Twice, 2 times. I wuss out on the last mile. Anyway, but I have these pictures of me that I'll probably link in the show notes of what I look like as a triathlete, and I look like I could have been in one of those hunger commercials because I was just so no sort of body shape. I was very lean,
Uh-huh.
but when I first started CrossFitting, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I had no strength. I think I could back squat 95 pounds maybe. That was my first PR was 95 pounds. I had very little strength.
Remember Fat Club? I feel like we've got to talk about Fat Club.
Yeah, we
Fat
do.
Club, we started PHAT, by the way. my mom and sisters, my aunts, we were sitting around one day and decided we need to get our act together. Let's help motivate each other. Let's get together every 2 weeks. Someone would host dinner and we would all weigh in and we would all contribute a certain amount of money. Whoever lost the most weight would get the money for the week. And we did that for several years.
That was the unofficial Stay Fit Mom before we became official Stay Fit Mom. That was basically where the community started.
Not really, but that was a fun way to stay motivated. I mean, that would be so fun even now.
I'm reading the book Atomic Habits right now, and they talk about how being fit, being healthy, exercising, those are all goals that don't really have instant gratification. I mean, yes, you'll get a serotonin boost, but most people are motivated to exercise and get their nutrition in order because they want to lose weight. That's a big motivator, but it takes a lot of time. So his tip is give yourself these instant gratifications, these short-term rewards
Mhm.
like Fat Club, for example, and whoever loses the most wins the pot of money. That would be an example of giving yourself a short-term reward, even though this is a very long-term process.
Right. I think all those things were great, giving yourself those short-term goals and rewards. But what happens, I feel like we're now in a stage where it's kind of hard because you're almost maintaining, you know? It's not like I want to chase X amount of weight loss forever. And we're kind of just going through the motions, right? And
There's definitely, I guess what you're saying is there's just a different mindset when you have a goal in front of you and you're trying to lose an X amount of weight, and then finally you hit that, and then you're just in this longevity,
yes.
and it's a very different mindset. It is for
Right.
sure. Okay, so you said that we played volleyball. You remember running outside at the park. So how do we go from that? Bridge us to where we are when you started CrossFit. And I know you've done other things besides CrossFit, like bodybuilding and stuff, but bridge us to where we are now.
You guys invited us over to do a CrossFit workout in your neighborhood. You were doing those neighborhood workouts. And I remember that first workout like it was yesterday. We went to your house and we did a mile for time around your neighborhood. And I peed my pants and I was mortified. I ran the mile and then stopped. And all of a sudden it was whoosh. And I remember you gave me some new pants. And then we went in your brother's garage or somebody's garage, and they were trying to help us do pull-ups with bands. It was all new to me, but I was like, I got to figure this out. I guess that was my aha moment. That mile, it was humiliating, not only because I peed my pants, but it was so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say at that point, we decided let's start putting together a garage gym. So we started buying used equipment on Craigslist and we put together a gym in our garage and started doing CrossFit workouts on our own.
Well, CrossFit has a stigma of its own. Just in case you're living under a rock, you've never heard of what CrossFit is. How would you describe it, Krista?
High intensity workouts, typically X amount of weight for X amount of repetitions or for time as quickly as you can. It's very competitive, not necessarily against other people, but with yourself too. And I think that that's why a lot of people are drawn to it. I mean, like I said, it was really hard. There was no other time. I loved jogging growing up, but I had never had someone say, do this mile as fast as you can.
Maybe if you did run track, you might have had somebody, you might have run the 40-yard dash or run the 1 mile for time. But what makes CrossFit unique is that it's a combination of these barbell movements and gymnastics and endurance. And so it's to test your ultimate fitness because we want to be both fast and strong. And
Mhm.
what I love about CrossFit is that it highlights strengths. You can go and have a strength no matter what size you are. You're heavier. You can go into CrossFit and typically you can outlift so many people and just feel so proud and accomplished that you can use your body weight to lift a lot of weights. And on the other side, if you're this endurance athlete and there's a workout with running in it, then you have the real big advantage.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I love about it is that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses and it kind of levels out, or you have to kind of figure out where you need to get better at those things that you lack.
And it involves a lot of gymnastics, which was brand new to, I think, both of us learning to do these kipping pull-ups or toes to bar. Yeah, just the challenge of it, I think, and learning new things and it being competitive made it fun. It made you want to keep working.
And functional fitness, the idea behind it is that you want to be able to get off the toilet when you're 80 years old. How do you do that? Well, you have to build yourself really strong muscles now so that when you're 80 years old, your muscle hasn't deteriorated to the point where you can't get off the toilet. That's you got to be able to do a squat, basically, is what that comes from. I saw this post. I got to find it. Can't remember where I saw it though. Basically, the premise of the post was you don't get diabetes when you're 50 because of the choices you made that year. You get diabetes when you're 50 because of the choices you made when you were 20.
Yeah. I mean, CrossFit is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. It can be for everyone. Everything is modifiable, but there's definitely people that it's just not for them. My mom is one of them. She's always been like, CrossFit, no, I have no desire, which is totally fine. That's just something that I took an interest in and have mostly been doing it ever since. That was probably what, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I've been CrossFitting since Milo was born, so that's 12 years for me, but yeah, probably right around there. I love how you said it doesn't really matter if, basically pick your thing. Do something that you enjoy because the exercise program that you are going to be most successful with is the one that you do consistently. And if you wake up every morning and you hate it, it's going to be a lot harder to stick with that. So find something that you love. It doesn't matter what it is and you just do it anyway. Just do something.
Yeah. So at this point, you were doing the CrossFit workouts with your neighborhood. How long did that
Right.
last? A couple years before you joined an official CrossFit gym?
I think it did last a couple of years because I think I had some kids in between there. I was so intimidated to join a gym too, because then it becomes real. People might have to put my name on the board and a score attached to it. That's why a lot of people I think are intimidated by CrossFit too. It's such a thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that's just my pride. I wanted to be good at, I want to be good at everything.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, I could see why people just feel like they need to get in shape to go. But what helped me overcome that, well, and let me back up and say that I've married into this very athletic family where Chris is a Division 1 athlete. His brothers are all Division 1 athletes. My sister-in-laws are super fit. And I just never felt like I was in that caliber. And so I was like, great, I'm going to go to CrossFit with all of these Olympians. I'm just a regular person. But what got me over that was I was running with one of my friends that had twin girls. I was doing like boot camp with her. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to try this CrossFit thing." And I was like, "Are you serious? That's for people that with big, crazy, intense athletic backgrounds." And she's like, "Well, I'm just going to try it." And
Yeah.
she was so brave and nonchalant about it. And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I'll go with you." And so I went with her and it was great. I loved it. And I got over that. Okay, yes, I'm not going to be at that caliber of
Mhm.
athlete, but I still, my body benefited so much. I remember seeing drastic changes in my body composition. What I talked about earlier, I was very lean, not very strong person. And then my body just started getting more tone, more defined. I had abs. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, my whole life I thought you had to do sit ups to get abs or crunches. There's all these ab programs. Get these abs from, this.
Well,
And really,
P90X, there was a whole separate workout just for abs.
yes. And CrossFit made me realize, oh, no, no, no. Abs are not just 1,000 crunches and boom, have abs. It's core stability, which is every barbell movement takes core stability, gymnastics. It was just total mind shift of what I thought. The workouts that you had to perform in order to look a certain way, CrossFit kind of rocked my world with that, if that makes any sense.
Well, and another thing we kind of skipped over is the community of CrossFit, I think drew us in as well. You're working out with the same people every day at the same time, and there's just a really close-knit community in the CrossFit world.
Yes. So you're all doing the same workout. That's another thing I love about CrossFit too, is that you just walk in. You don't have to think about anything. You show up, the coach tells you what to do, and everyone in the class is doing the same thing. So say it's 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, 20-minute AMRAP. So in 20 minutes, you do as many rounds of those things as you possibly can. And so for somebody that's just starting out, they have all these abilities to modify and do a less intense version. If you're the super athlete, you could do a more intense version. You could be doing weighted pull-ups.
Yeah.
But yes, the community aspect, because there were so many of those workouts where I would be on round 3 of 6. And if I was doing those at home by myself, I didn't think at the time that I had the mental fortitude to keep sticking it out. But when people around you are doing it, you're like, okay, well, if 50-year-old grandma over there can do it, I better get myself together,
Right.
you know?
And when everybody's waiting for you to finish, you're like, I'm not going to quit.
Right.
How I feel like I am now. So, aside from CrossFit, is there anything else that you've done in between, or what's something that you maybe would never do? Kind of exercise or
Well,
workout?
I will say I did Zumba for a while at
Oh,
24 Hour
that's right.
Fitness.
I remember you loving that. I used to love the classes, different pump ones. I remember doing some of the aerobic ones for fun, water aerobics.
But you've done bodybuilding stuff, Krista, haven't you? Weren't you at a point where you're like, I'm burned out on CrossFit, I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I feel like you did some bodybuilding stuff?
Yes, I did Paragon workouts for, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. I might have taken a year off of CrossFit. So we had our garage gym. At one point, we started going to CrossFit Apollo, where you were. I've kind of transitioned back and forth. I'm now back at CrossFit Apollo. We're getting ready to build our own garage gym again. So I don't know what the future holds for me. I've done both. I feel like working out with other people and at CrossFit is great. I also enjoy working out alone. That doesn't bother me either. But I do like having the ability to do both. You're working out at home in your own gym.
Yeah, and that is mostly due to the fact that we just have less time available to us, and I feel like you just cannot beat the convenience of having a gym in your garage because CrossFit used to be a 2-hour endeavor for me. You have to get dressed, you have to get in the car, go to the gym. It's a full hour, then you come back.
Mhm.
Whereas if I just know I'm doing a 20-minute workout in the garage, then it's more like a 45-minute endeavor for me, and I can get right into the next thing. Plus, the other thing about us having a garage gym that's so wonderful is that all of our kids can capitalize and do the workouts with us.
Yeah.
So that's been huge for our family. One of the things that I wanted to talk about though, finding motivation when life gets busy. So how do you prioritize exercise when everything else is pulling at you, Krista?
For me, it's just something, it's part of my daily routine. When you ask me, hey, can we record the podcast on Thursday? I say yes. 11 a.m. works for me because I know I'm going to 9:30 a.m. CrossFit. It's just a priority. When I was teaching, I would go in the evenings after I fed my little kids dinner. I would go, then Chad would go. When we were working out in our garage gym, I remember doing it late at night when they were little, when they were babies. Yeah, you just have to find a time that works for you and it has to be a priority. You need to schedule other things around it.
Yeah, and I think it's also what's the word I'm looking for? I guess it's okay when your life is in transition to kind of refigure that out. Like if you just have a new baby, you got to figure out like, oh my gosh, my habit is that I work out every day at 7. Well, I just had a baby. What am I going to do? Or there's just certain curveballs that life throws at you. Like you get sick and you can't work out. What are you going to do? And so I feel like just having that identity of I am an exerciser helps you to be persistent when those transitions hit your life. And you might have to take a little bit of a hiatus for an extended period of time for some reason or another. But then, okay, I'm at the point now where I need to reconfigure my life so that this can become a priority again. Can you think of a time, Krista, in your life where you've had to do that? Obviously, I mentioned like sickness and babies, but
Yeah, when we had our breast augmentations, I remember that was hard because we couldn't exercise for what, 3 or 4 weeks at all, and then it was limited. That's probably the only time in my life where I've had to it's not an injury, but where I couldn't do it. I couldn't do
yeah.
certain things.
Yeah, it is hard. I was thinking through adoption. I feel like adoption to me has kind of been like having another baby in some ways. You're figuring out how to do life again with new people in your life. And so I don't know, I just feel like I went through this stage of very much reacting to and not putting exercise at the top of my list. And I think too, because we're nutrition coaches, I have always said fat loss is 80% what you're eating. And I think that's an important thing to talk about, which we will get there. But I was thinking for me personally that I would err more on, okay, well, if I'm concerned with my nutrition, then exercise can take a back seat. And that led to this slow derailment of my exercise habits, really. Over time, I was like, I don't have time. I'll just push that till later. And so I had to figure out how to restructure my life again. Like, no, that's off keel or whatever.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about that concept really quick of fat loss being 80% nutrition. We'll have a lot of clients that will email in and say, I'm coming back from surgery. I have an injury. Is your program still going to work for me if I can't exercise? And what would you say to that, Krista?
Absolutely. Weight loss is 80% what you eat, possibly more. Our program is focused on helping you get your nutrition in order, and we design the program around what your exercise currently is or is not.
Yeah. And I was thinking about how many choices you make in a day that reinforce your nutrition versus how many choices you make a day that reinforce exercise. Exercise to me is a one decision thing, whereas your nutrition is a constant thing, right? You have to make decisions on what you're eating all the time. You make the decision to exercise one time. And so that kind of puts it in perspective. What you're eating has a lot more impact. But then if that's the case, then why exercise? I guess is the next question.
For me personally, although I know that nutrition is most important for me, that's the groundwork for the rest of the day. I know I got my exercise in the rest of the day. I'm not going to blow my nutrition when I knew I already went and did this workout. I also feel like exercise for me is just so much more than how many calories I'm burning. We already kind of talked about this, but I'm such a firm believer in exercising and getting outside and getting fresh air and vitamin D. That will fight off so many mental and emotional possible problems, anxiety and depression. To me, that is so real. And that's probably one of the main reasons that I exercise.
That's a great reason. I said a couple of things that I totally agree with. Exercise is as much for your mental health as it is for your physical health, but also that when you exercise, you are more likely to eat healthy because you feel like
Right.
they're just so interconnected. And then the other thing I was thinking of, when you build muscle, you're working towards increasing your metabolic capacity. The more muscle mass you have, the more calories you can burn. It's like flossing your teeth. While that single workout isn't going to move mountains in your overall health, the repeated effort over and over and over again is going to create muscle mass in you that is going to have this great ripple effect that's going to yield you so many benefits long term. We, in the past, have done a book club on glucose revolution. And they talk about how when your body takes in glucose, which is carbohydrates, we spike. You need carbohydrates for energy. But when they come in too quickly, like for example, you're going to have fast food and you have a burger and fries, your body can't process all of that glucose effectively. And so what happens is you have these free radicals that are damaging your cells. And over time, those repeated spikes in your glucose lead to horrible things like diabetes and heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's and all of these really problematic health issues. One place that glucose goes is to your liver, and your liver can house 100 grams of glucose, which is about 2 large McDonald's French fries. Your muscles, however, because we have so many muscles throughout our bodies, they're the most effective unit of glucose storage. A 150-pound person can hold 400 grams of glucose, which is the equivalent of 7 large McDonald's French fries. So it just goes to show how important and interconnected your nutrition and your muscle development, your muscle mass really are. It just gives you way more of a fighting chance at lifelong health if you're pairing them together over time. Is it going to kill you if you miss a workout? No. But the habit, like you've been talking about this whole episode, Krista, the habit of it is going to yield so many benefits long term. If somebody only has 20 minutes of extra time, what's the most effective workouts that they can do to get the most bang for their buck? Krista, what do you think?
They definitely need to do some sort of weight program. dumbbells, something to build that muscle that you were just talking about.
Yeah. And I would say they go hand in hand. I feel like we kind of swing in culture. Growing up, we were always like elliptical, forever. And it was just all this cardio. And now people are like, oh, no, no, no. You got to be in the gym lifting heavy weights. Do that. Prioritize that.
Mhm.
But really, I think why CrossFitters are so successful is because we're pairing the two. We're lifting and we're endurance athletes. We have so many workouts on our website that you can access that are all 30 minutes or less that will hit both of these benchmarks that are cardio inducing as well as strength training, balance, core, all those things that you need. Have you ever dealt with injuries or setbacks in your journey, Krista?
I've been sick this past week. Plan B is I'm just going to go for a walk. Walking always better than nothing. And you're getting outside, like, you're getting the fresh air and the vitamin D. So it's a win-win. A walk always be your plan B. I don't think I've ever been injured. I've sprained my ankle maybe here and there. Nothing that kept me from going to the gym. What about you?
I feel like I've always got something going on. I've had really bad plantar fasciitis, which is a total bummer because my plan B of walking, like you just said, is taken right out from under me
Yeah.
because walking was one of the most painful things. But that's another thing that I love so much about CrossFit is that there's so many options if you are injured. You can always program a workout around your injury. That's what CrossFit's taught me. So if, for example, there's a workout that has running in it and you have plantar fasciitis, then you could do the bike, you could do the rower, you could just swim, just trade out that cardio movement for another one. If you have a shoulder injury, you could still do deadlifts. There's still a lot of movements that you can do that don't use those body parts.
You just always have to be intentional. So I do pickleball on Fridays. I started a little pickleball club. Yeah, I mean, you have to work at those. Nobody's going to necessarily invite you to go play, but you can start your own club. You can start a fat club. You can start a walking club. I mean, there's always things that you can do, but you have to do them.
Love that. If you're not getting invited to pickleball, you just start your own.
Yeah.
I've been reading all these books lately because I just finished 75 Hard. I did a whole post on that on my Instagram. And one of the things for 75 Hard, there's like all these benchmarks that you have to check. And one of them is reading 10 pages a day of some self improvement book of your choice. So I've read all these super motivating books lately. And one of them just talks about how our bodies are not created for all of these modern conveniences. And so exercise in terms of the length of human existence is a fairly new thing because before people had just harder lives. All you were doing all day might be your laundry because you didn't have a washer machine and a dryer machine. And,
Yeah.
that was like physical labor that you would do, or you had to
Walk
go out and
everywhere.
hunt for, yeah,
Yeah.
you walk everywhere. You had to hunt for your food. And so the idea of exercise in general is just very modern concept. And it's just so interesting that people are more depressed than they've ever been in the history of humans. And that has to be connected with the fact that we're also more at a desk than we've ever been in
Right.
our past as humans.
So I quit teaching PE 4 years ago and just working all day, getting 10,000 steps without even thinking about it to working at home. It was a hard transition. It still is. Unless I go out and go for a walk, I'm just not moving much. And that
Mhm.
was a hard transition for me. Yeah, it's just I didn't have to think about it before. Now it's like, okay, what am I going to do today to make sure I get my steps in? This is silly, but we're building a home and all the cool things that you can get now. You can get automatic blinds and you can have smart locks where you push a button on your phone and it makes sure every single door in your house is locked. There's just so many things. And all the time I say to Chad, like, heaven forbid we just do it the old fashioned way. And I get up and I walk the house at night to make sure that the doors are locked or that the windows are closed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
Sometimes I think it's so ridiculous. That's one more thing that I wouldn't be doing. I'd just be laying in my bed pushing a button.
Right. All the more we have to actively combat the conveniences that are meant to make us more efficient, make us more productive,
Right.
but really, yeah, we are sitting more than we ever have. Our jobs are stay fit mom. You'd think that would be a very active job, but yeah, most of the time we're just behind the
Yeah.
computers. Do you have any advice that you want to leave everybody with?
I'm going to circle back and just say, start the pickleball club or invite your friend to go to the gym with you, find a buddy, make it happen. You have to create your own motivation. Do it for the right reasons. Do it for you. Don't do it necessarily because you want to look amazing. Do it because you feel good.
I guess I'll say this. Exercise needs to be part of your identity. I am an exerciser. I am a healthy person. And when you say that to yourself, the habits are going to follow. Protect that exercise time and don't let anything get in the way of that. We hope this episode inspired you to make exercise a priority in your life, build that healthy habit, and protect your time. Happy sweating.
We appreciate you tuning in to the Stay Fit Mom podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media and head to stayfitmom.com for more resources and tips. You've got this. See you next time.